First, let's take a couple minutes to talk about Boeing. With I don't know how to intro this because this is such a bizarre story, but I feel like we need to know what's going on. Jay Ratliff is here, aviation consultant, former Northwest Airlines executive. Jay, how are you?
Good morning to you again.
And to you. I don't know where to start this story. Let me just say this. So the other day I saw a video. It was an undercover video of a guy who worked at one of the manufacturing facilities. And he was going around, he was talking to people, and they were talking about how they're high and they're just doing shoddy work, and they themselves would never fly on a Boeing airplane. And I was like, well, this is crazy. But then it was an Al Jazeera report. So I'm like, I'm not going to believe that. And it turned out it was from 9 years ago. So like, I don't know what to do with that. But then we got this report that there was a FAA audit of Boeing planes, and it didn't go well for them. What was found in that audit?
Well, they found that some shortcuts were being taken and that some of the quality control process procedures that they had in place weren't being followed. And there were so many things that were within the report, and it screams that there's a whole lot going on here that, A, we've been aware of for a while, and B, that Boeing promised many, many years ago to fix. Now, if you go back to the Boeing MAX crashes that we had about 5 years ago, we had two crashes. I think it was 436 lives that were lost. It was over the introduction of the Boeing MAX aircraft, the MCAS system that they had on board an aircraft. And the investigation revealed that Boeing was aware of the fact that they had serious safety issues on this airplane. They withhold critical information from FAA inspectors, from airlines, and from pilots. In fact, the pilots weren't even told of the MCAS system that was on there that would violently rip the controls out of their hands and maintain control for 10 seconds and then give it back at 5 seconds in the event that the aircraft detected a stall was in place or in danger. So one of the things that Boeing, it was discovered during the investigation over the next couple of years, is they were very negligent, I think almost from a criminal standpoint in my own mind, but they took responsibility. They were fine. Nobody got fired. I don't think anybody from the board of directors at Boeing was let go. You had a culture at Boeing that for a number of years existed, that the production of the aircraft, that schedule was king. Safety seemed to be taking a back seat. And after this, Boeing came out with paragraphs of promise saying, we've learned our lesson, this will never happen again, we're going to become the Boeing of old, which used to be the most incredible safety-minded organization on the planet, and they said, we're going to learn from this, we're going to get better. So we fast forward to December of last year, on the 30th, Boeing sends out a memo to people that had their Boeing MAX airplanes saying, look, some pilots or some mechanics have reported that they found some loose and missing bolts on the rudder control systems of these airplanes. Keep this in mind. Check this as you can. Just kind of an advisory. And it's like, wait a minute, how could there be missing bolts from anything on a Boeing aircraft? Well, then it's, 2 weeks later, the door blows off of the Alaska Airlines flight 1282, and we're finding out that there was unsecured or missing hardware to secure that door as well, which screams what's going on at Boeing. And, of course, since then, the discussion has been what's the production going on at Boeing and what are they not doing? And obviously they've not learned from lessons of old, and the production is still driving everything. One of the whistleblowers that everybody's talking about, John Barnett, was a Boeing employee for 32 years. He's been battling Boeing for a number of years, and he was a quality control manager, not over the 737 MAX, but over the Dreamliner 787. And at the facility he was at, he kept complaining that the oxygen systems on board the airplane wouldn't work. In fact, 1 out of 4, he said, would fail in an emergency. He also said that a lot of times when they ran out of parts, supervisors would tell the employees, go over to the scrap bin, where we throw all the parts that are too bad to use. Pick out the best one and bring it back. We'll use that so that we can keep the production going and not delay the assembly process. So the FAA and the Department of Transportation looked into these claims, found out some of them were true. And sadly, that whistleblower was found dead this week with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. But it really just shows that there's a lot of problems going on at Boeing right now. And I tell you what it reminds me of. Mike, it reminds me of the Challenger disaster, when NASA was so hell-bent on launching 24 shuttle missions in the course of a year, whatever it happened to be, that they were going to put the schedule first, safety second. And we're seeing that exact same thing happen right now at Boeing.
Yeah. Okay. Where would you assess the breakdown is? So there's, it could be at the top, it could be in middle management, there could be a breakdown. There could be a breakdown of just the people they hire to put the plane together are on drugs all the time, and right. So there could be a. Where do you think it is, or all?
Well, it's the frontline employees that are complaining, saying that we're being put under a lot of stress here to get these airplanes out faster than we should, because of the fact that the schedule right now. Look, Airbus is kicking Boeing's tail, big time, and Airbus is clearly the better product right now. So you've got the frontline employees that are doing what they can, but they're under a lot of pressure, and it comes from the top. Look, but I don't expect Boeing to do what's right here. They've had years to do it, and they've not done it. Mm-hmm. And when they talk, it's like the Charlie Brown adults. Wonk, wonk, wonk. I don't even listen to them because it's like a political speech. They're just saying words to say words. What I look at is the Federal Aviation Administration. They're the ones that are in charge to make sure that Boeing is doing what they're supposed to be doing. After Boeing lied to the FAA inspectors over the Boeing MAX all those years ago, I thought we would be all over Boeing so much that they wouldn't be able to sneeze without an inspector handing them a Kleenex. So what's taken place, though, is, again, there seems to be this latitude that Boeing is given where they're allowed to do certain things. Years ago, if there was ever a problem on a specific airplane, the FAA would step in and ground that airplane and say, look, we're going to find out what's going on first, and then we're going to allow that airplane back into customer service or into service. When the Boeing MAX 2 crashes were taking place years ago and all the airlines around the world were grounding that airplane, I was screaming on every national show I was on, these airplanes need to be grounded now because we don't know what's going on. And sadly, the FAA refused to ground that airplane. And was it because of pressure from Boeing? Maybe from airlines? I don't know. But the airlines that were flying those airplanes also didn't ground them. It took President Trump to step in. And we were the last people on the planet to ground that airplane. And I tell you what, if there's missing bolts or anything like that from critical components on an airplane, then it needs to be inspected immediately. You can't keep playing with fire like this because we have a sense of complacency right now because we're in the safest era ever of commercial jet travel, and human nature being what it is. Yeah. It just causes people to get a little sloppy, and we're seeing it far too often right now, and we're on borrowed time. We've got to do something, and we've got to do it fast.
Yeah, you're right. You're right with human nature. I think they're too big to fail, right? We can't ground all the airplanes, Jay. I mean, the economy would come to a ground.
We've got to do something.
So here's the
we're
report.
Certainly not doing what we need to be doing now. And it seems to me, and look, this is my opinion. I could really be wrong here. I'm not. It's like Boeing's telling the government what they're going to do instead of the other way around.
Yeah. So of the the FAA audit, 89 production process audits conducted. Boeing failed 33 of the 89. Failed.
Yes.
That's 97 instances of noncompliance. One use of a hotel key card to check a door seal. Another is the use of liquid dish soap as a mechanical.
Yeah, that was my favorite. It's like, here, let's use this. It's like, because every single thing that the FAA does, and they drive me crazy in a lot of ways, but they have very specific process for everything. And you have the right tool for a specific thing, and it has to be approved in advance, worked out. And the idea that we're improvising along the way, here, let's use this. I mean, it just shows that certain things are just out of control here. And it's just,
yeah. Okay. So here's my question for you. How bad does it have to be before you don't fly on a Boeing airplane, or before almost everyone else is like, all right, I'm out of Boeing?
Well, it's going to take a crash. It's going to take a loss of life. And then you're going to watch all the political people pull up hamstring, running to the nearest microphone, screaming on what they're going to do. And it's sad, but sadly, that's the history of aviation. You have people complaining about things, and it reminds me of pre 9/11. None of the check bags were screened on domestic flights, and we were scared to death that you'd have 20, 30, 40, 50 terrorists board airplanes around the world, or here in the United States, and blow all these airplanes out of the sky because we weren't screening bags. We were on borrowed time then. After the attacks of 9/11, everything changed. Where we were then screening bags, but we've got that same sort of issue now. And Look, I flew a couple of weeks ago. It was on a Boeing. I don't mind. Now, look, I fly Delta's my primary carrier, so they don't have the Boeing Max airplanes. But I would be a little concerned. I'm not saying I wouldn't fly it, but if I had my options.
Well, we're getting to that point. Jay, we got to run. Former Northwest Airlines executive Jay_Ratliff, RATLIFF. Jay, appreciate it. Thanks for your insight here. Human nature, sloppiness, metaphor for our country right there. I hope you see that. And also a reminder that it is God's grace that any plane ever takes off and ever makes it all the way through a flight without falling apart. Like how does it ever work?